we are responsible for our own pleasure, actually. And anytime that we make that need a responsibility of somebody else, that's not going to work. So if we're always like super attached to having that feel good dopamine pleasure, that's also not going to work. For me, putting pleasure first actually becomes the nourishment. It's like the vitamins and the supplements and the minerals that you give your body. Okay, what in here is going to create like sensation and play and curiosity that actually feels good? And so we came out with a fork.
Oh, it was so popular, this fork.
I think it was the winning one. So like literally like a fork on your bare skin feels so pleasurable. And how many times do you pick up a fork every day? There's just this joy and this freedom and liberation in being in this body. You know, before the shame comes in or like, oh, you shouldn't do that, or that's dirty, that's bad, that's wrong, stop it. You know, it's just like the joy and the delight of having a body and exploring the world through it.
Femininity, or being in your feminine leadership, is how much you honor yourself. And if I did honor myself and treated myself that way, then I could surrender more. Welcome to the Enlightened DXB podcast. It is my pleasure today to introduce again a repeat guest, Alice Hong, who is a female embodiment and leadership and pleasure coach. And so we're talking about pleasure again and feminine leadership and all the juicy stuff that we got to talk about at a women's circle last night as well here in Dubai. Welcome, Alice.
Thanks so much, Erica. Such a joy to be back.
Such a joy to have you. And it was such a juicy women's circle last night. I was reminded of the power and just like the simplicity of inviting pleasure back into our lives. For those people out there that might be like, pleasure, I'm just surviving. You know, and we've had this conversation a few times too. Like, we're both business women. We're both like hustling on some days. What is the importance of pleasure when we have so many things to do and get done?
Yeah, the way that I see pleasure is that it's the fuel for everything. It's not the thing that comes last on the to-do list, which, like, let's be honest, never actually really happens, because as I said yesterday, when do you actually get to the end of a to-do list, especially if you're like a busy entrepreneur, a mom, a partner, you know, you've taken care of aging parents, like all of these things, it never ends. So for me, putting pleasure first actually becomes the nourishment. It's like the vitamins and the supplements and the minerals that you give your body when your day starts and all throughout, so that it becomes actually this well of resource, you know, for you, rather than a place of depletion or another thing to do.
I love that reframe, because it's almost like for all of those optimizers out there, it's like it's part of your supplement stack, right? And pleasure, vitamin pleasure is like number one on your list in the morning.
Totally.
And I also love that you're talking about prioritizing it as number one, and also at the beginning of the day, because people don't really think that way. And you gave me this wonderful advice just 2 days ago that I have implemented already. Alice asked me on Sunday, do you take a lot of meetings in the morning? And I was like, yeah, I do a lot of my team meetings in the morning so that I can do my own stuff in the afternoon. And you had such beautiful advice that you keep your mornings for you. Not just pleasure, but like pleasure of the business, which is getting your own stuff done first and then dealing with other people's stuff second. And I thought, oh, wow, revolutionary. So it's already implemented.
Yeah, pleasure for me is, we'll talk about self-pleasure and sexual pleasure, sensual pleasure, all of that, because it's so important. And at the same time, pleasure is really like our capacity to receive life, to be in our body, because we can experience pleasure through our senses. it's so supportive for us to get into flow state, because when we're in pleasure, we're in an expanded state of awareness, which for like the biohackers and the flow state junkies out there, pleasure is one of these expanded states of consciousness. So for me, when I say like pleasure first, and again, we can get to it a little bit later, but it's not necessarily like you have to do a 2-hour ritual in the morning by yourself. I mean, great if you can. Let's celebrate that and incorporate it. But I really literally mean that sometimes it's 3 breaths. It's really just starting the day rather than that cortisol of stress of like checking all the messages on your phone. And yes, what can I do for everybody else and what needs to be done? And you feel behind before you even get out of bed. I know I've had days like that, is to really retrain your nervous system for ease, expansion, and pleasure. So when I wake up, like the first thing that I do is one hand to my heart, one hand over top of my vulva. And it's literally 3 slow, delicious breaths. And that alone starts my day off with like, oh, right, heart, you also exist in my life. Oh, right, vulva, like you're also a part of my life and my creativity and my joy. And that all of me, not just my brain, because that's going to switch on right away. So I don't have to worry about that one not being included in the conversation, but to really bring all the parts of me in with my day.
Well, let's get right into it right here. I mean, we're going to try and talk about all of the things, but for those people out there that are like, okay, 3 breaths, what are other practical things? What are things, Alice, that you do throughout the day to bring yourself back or go, yeah, did you know that this is pleasurable? This is something that is a moment for me. What are some of these strategies and hacks and beautiful moments of connection that you create for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of some great, very relatable ones, but I'm kind of cheekily smiling right now because I was thinking about our women's circle at your house yesterday. And we did a very beautiful, simple, but very beautiful pleasure ritual together, all of the women. And so I'm really practical. I mean, I have Asian roots, so I can be like super up there, woo, mystical. I can definitely dance there, but I'm also very, very grounded and practical. So we literally went into the kitchen, right? And we're like, okay, what in here is going to create like sensation and play and curiosity that actually feels good? And so we came out with a fork.
Oh, it was so popular, this fork.
I think it was the winning one. So like literally like a fork on your bare skin feels so pleasurable. And how many times do you pick up a fork every day? Okay, maybe you're at the restaurant in a business meeting. You're not going to like run your fork essentially on your body. I mean, you could if you want. But I just mean like I bring this example or I think you found like a matcha. What was this thing?
Yeah, matcha whisk.
A matcha whisk, which was also really fun and popular. But it's like bringing the play back, right? So it's like I'm often asking myself when I'm in a moment of stress or contraction, or I'm like so obsessed about what I'm doing and it's actually not a good space, I take a breath, right? And then like, how can this moment be more pleasurable? How can this moment be more pleasurable? And sometimes it's literally like giving yourself self-touch, like when you put lotion on your skin, to really like take a minute, to really like enjoy this lathering of lotion on your skin. Or have you ever like, I see this all the time, like you're kind of hanging out with a friend on the couch and you can kind of tell that she's not looking so comfortable. And, maybe if she had a pillow underneath her back and you ask and she's like, no, I'm okay. And it's like this. I'm like, really? And you hand it over, they're like, oh. Right. So it's literally like moments like this where I'm like, oh, how can this moment be even more pleasurable?
I love that. Like just you saying that, I'm like, I realize I kind of have started automatically doing this, like buying shampoos that feel incredibly pleasurable on my scalp or buying certain clothes that feel really good on my skin. Tauruses are really good for this. I feel like they're really good at buying things that feel good and like making your house. Like I also don't understand people who are like, my house is just the place where I lay my head. And I'm like, no, it's like you buy rugs, how they feel on your feet and like the couch and the fabrics and the colors and and you can make the tiniest things pleasurable. Even these mugs that we have in front of us are thrown by a potter. I don't know if you call them potters, but yeah, potter in Seattle that my sister knows. And I just love how they feel on my mouth.
Noticed them when you put them down. Yeah, it was pleasurable to look at.
To say, so, wow, yeah, like that's a test for women, I guess. And it's something I imagine women are really, in some ways, better than men at, in terms of how can I infuse the most pleasure in every moment? All the sensual senses, I feel, is a more feminine or easily obtained feminine quality.
I had a message actually from a woman who just came back on from retreat with me, and she made everybody laugh in our chat because she's like, "Ladies, my morning pee ritual has completely changed." We're like, "Tell us more," And
tell us more.
She was literally like, "I sat down this morning after I woke up, and I noticed how soft the bath mat felt between my toes, and then I had this moment of just feeling the excitement of my warm shower already on my skin." She's just like, and it was like this mini, I call them like micro pleasure moments throughout the day, where we really just bring this back. It's a really simple awareness practice, essentially. It's a meditation, and pleasure is a state of being. It's not even something that we can get that's outside of us. You feel pleasure from the inside. So it's a state of being. So just as we can train ourselves to be grateful or to look for what's going well instead of what's not going well, pleasure is just another trained state of being that creates so much more spaciousness.
Before we continue, I want to share something really special. If you've been feeling the call to soften, to slow down, to reconnect with your body, your intuition, and your feminine essence, this is for you. Alice Hong is bringing Untamed to Dubai, a 5-week transformational container devoted to untaming and unleashing your beautiful feminine energy, that feminine side of us that is often suppressed and contained. This journey includes 2 deeply immersive in-person weekend retreats here in Dubai in May 2026, alongside guided practices, embodiment work, and powerful sisterhood, all in a 5-week online and offline container. Untamed is for women who are done performing, done shrinking, and ready to come home to themselves. Spots are intentionally limited to protect the integrity of the container. So if this is speaking to you, go to enlighteneddxb.com to register your interest. Trust the nudge. Your untamed self is waiting.
I totally agree with you. And at the same time, I'm noticing like this, if I were to play devil's advocate, I can hear these voices saying, yeah, but pleasure's like extra. It's superfluous. Or what do you say to the people? Like I've heard lately some neuroscientists talking about how we've become too pleasure obsessed or dopamine obsessed. What do you say to that?
Yeah. I love devil's advocate stuff, by the way, because just one thing about me is like, I'm rarely like, this is the only way and this is always the way. I really feel it's not even just balance like 50-50, but as I've just told you, I really love having range, right? So I totally agree. If we are just like super obsessive with pleasure and feel good all the time, we're going to be really disappointed in life and probably have a very hard time with it because life's just not going to be that way. So if we're always like super attached to having that feel good dopamine pleasure, that's also not going to work. Or I had a question that I did a talk the other day and somebody from the audience said like, yeah, but some pleasure is really not good. Like what if somebody really takes pleasure in, I don't know, alcohol, that is
certain narcotics. Yeah.
Yeah. Or something like that is actually creating a negative ripple effect in different areas of their life, so I totally hear you. So it's not, when I speak about pleasure, it's not this kind of like hooky seeking, addictive kind of pleasure. It's really a quality of being, right? And I think that how I see it is when we can expand our capacity, just like our nervous system, to self-regulate, to have a larger window of tolerance, right, of what our nervous system can handle at the ranges, then when we have challenging things that come into our life, our window of tolerance has already been cultivated and more resilient to be able to handle those like outlying moments. So pleasure is kind of how I see that. It's like the thing that runs in tandem or parallel with the challenges.
Yeah, how beautiful.
And it's like when my team is like, when we're at an event and like all hands are on deck and we've got, hundreds of women coming in, we're like, all right, this is going to rock and roll. We're not all just like self-pleasuring in the corners, we're like, we're moving. I'm like, okay, ladies, today we gotta, we're going to flow in our feminine, and please bring your masculine structure, devotion, clarity. We need that part of you too. And together, then they become like your power couple.
Yeah. Wow. So many directions we could go.
Yeah.
Because now we've brought in the masculine, feminine piece.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this for a moment. With regards to, I want to talk about both. How can we as women, like if we were to consider our inner masculine and inner feminine, what are ways in which we can support ourselves and our inner feminine to flourish more? I feel like, our traditional education systems, our traditional, dare I say, patriarchal societal structures has really taught most of us really well how to nurture and support our masculine side to be quite structured and productive, etc. But I don't see a lot of models out there of how we, or even our external masculine men in our lives, can support the feminine to flourish, to come out and be at our best.
I'm thinking about my relationship now because I've been married to my husband for 5 years, but we've been together for 10. Mm-hmm. And this has been one of our most challenging years, I would say, because we started working together full time at our house.
Yeah.
Untamed headquarters in Switzerland at our coffee table, essentially. And it's been really, really interesting, joyful, challenging, full spectrum. And I'm thinking about him because I think he represents, my external masculine, but he also, it's like when we work together, we have different aspects that show up, right? So sometimes like my feminine really wants to flow and be creative and come to Dubai on a whim and sit on a podcast with you and like, do all these really joyful things that make me expanded. And yet without the structure, stability, rhythm, accountability that he has really shown me in my life that I didn't have before, it's actually brought me so much more grounding and power because I'm not like floating in the, I can, jump and be anywhere, anytime. That creates a lot of magic for sure. And I love that. I never want that to go away. But I was feeling very ungrounded and I didn't have like a steadiness and rhythm so that I could then really fly.
I love that because like I know Amir, and shout out to him if he listens to this, but he is a really masculine man in many ways, and like super structured, super disciplined, super also like very direct. Like doesn't matter if it's like a good comment or a bad comment, he will just be direct. He will say what he means, and there's just a lot of really beautiful masculine qualities in that even when I just spend time with both of you, I even get of like, oh yeah, that is clarity. That is like masculine clarity and direction. And also, sometimes we can all reel that in a little bit or soften it with the feminine. But I do wonder, like, then what are the great masculine qualities that he does have that does support you to come out? And what are some of the things that men do or we do to ourselves that make us sort of become small or kind of revert to a more masculine way of doing things?
Yeah, I think what I often see happen is that the inner dialogue of women are our self-critic, the part of us that judges or controls or has very, very impossibly high standards for ourselves. That voice is often 10 times, 100 times more vicious than even any man in his power speaking to us would speak. Like there's like no room within ourselves for our feminine to show up. It's like we've shut her down before she even has had her voice.
Yeah.
So it's the image that keeps on coming to my brain right now is like if we're driving a car and let's just say like the masculine trait is like in the driver's seat and he's driving the car and he's like, okay, I got this, babe. And she's like, okay, great. Going for the ride. And she's like, oh, but what about like that ice cream shop that we just passed by? It looks really wonderful. Do you think we can stop? He's like, no, we no ice cream. Like we need to get like, these 10 things done first. And she's like, oh, okay. And then we do a few things. She's like, oh, but look at those beautiful flowers along the way. Like, oh, those look gorgeous on our dining room table. And he's like, no, like you're like, and it's just like, that's our inner voice a lot of the time with like very, ambitious, highly driven women. And so when I start to work with someone and I'm like, well, what does going back to the heart and the vulva, right? If you take a breath, babe, and tap into your heart, like what does your heart really long for in this moment? She's like, oh, just to like exhale, to be seen, to be felt, to be able to play again, to not take things so seriously anymore. Okay, good. And what does your vulva feel? And sometimes she feels numb, neglected, forgotten about. Sometimes she's like, I'm raging to go. And I have just kept on shutting her down. So when we kind of have this inner couple, let's say, where one part of us is just shutting down the other, after a while, your feminine in the car is not even going to ask anymore. She's just going to sit there and be kind of disappointed. And at some point, it goes from disappointment to resentful. Like, I hate this person that's sitting next to me. Like, he's no fun. He never gives me a voice. He always shuts me down, and then that goes into a complete numbing, shut down, disappearing. You're in the relationship, but you feel completely alone. Right. So, and then
so common, these things that you're talking about, even in our women's circle. So it's such a common pattern. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm also noticing as you're speaking, like very much it's a common pattern within me. Like forget about any external men in my life. Like definitely if I were to divvy up my masculine and my feminine, like this is their interaction. And there really has to be this integration of the two where they start working together and they start, my feminine goes, well, we just did 4 things. So now I get to have a little chocolate. And then he goes, well, we worked out this morning, so you shouldn't have that chocolate. And go, yeah, but what's life without pleasure? And then him going, oh, you're right. And, this sort of dance. And then that's the same dance that we should, I hate to use the word should, but we ought to invite, our partners, the men in our lives to also support us, to just be like, yeah, go for it. I think that it's just so reflective of like what's going on internally and what's going on externally. Mm-hmm. It seems to be a negotiation that needs to take place and a communication. And often I feel, at least on the feminine side or on the female side, we don't speak up. Like it's a boundary that's crossed if we're constantly getting shut down, right? Mm-hmm. And we actually need to find our voice.
Yeah, for sure. And to remember, like you mentioned yesterday in our circle, that like to really also know that those are our gifts. So I think we can outsource a lot of our pleasure. A lot of single women that I work with feel like, pleasure is like sexual intimacy with somebody else. Like I have no pleasure in my life because I don't have a partner. It's like, no, hun, like you are your own source of pleasure. You feel pleasure from the inside out. So we are responsible for our own pleasure, actually. And anytime that we make that need a responsibility of somebody else, that's not going to work over time.
Anytime we outsource our own needs, and by the way, we could probably fill in any of these blanks. It's like any need. If we outsource our needs, it's not going to work. Like we are responsible for us getting our own needs met. But definitely when it comes to pleasure, this is like, because I think a lot of women, as you said, believe that it is linked to sexuality and play with a partner. Mm-hmm. Let's speak more into that. Like, I suppose we go down this road of what creating a pleasure practice might look like. What is that for people who out there that are like, What's a pleasure practice?
So, I mean, it can go in so many different directions, right? So anything from like, so G-rated, like running forks up and down your arms, or playful, like, I love to bring in this playful innocence of pleasure. When we're babies and we come into this world, we are so naturally sensual. And what I mean by this word is like sensual comes from the word senses. We're so connected to our senses. That's why babies, like, we explore the world by like, sucking the toes and then like putting everything in your mouth. And then you're like, your whole body is like this sensitive organ that's just rolling around in grass. And, there's just this joy and this freedom and liberation in being in this body. Before the shame comes in, or like, oh, you shouldn't do that, or that's dirty, that's bad, that's wrong, stop it. It's just like the joy and the delight of having a body and exploring the world through it. So pleasure can be so sweet and innocent like this, or it can really be like, a pleasure practice where you're connecting with your own erotic energy, or with your sexual organs. For a long time, especially during my yoga teacher days, I understood as a concept that the sacral chakra, the second chakra, was about creativity and creation, and that it's the same kind of energy. Like, I got it on this level, but it wasn't until, honestly, I really connected with my erotic energy and my sexuality, actually, that I really started to unlock something so deep and understanding that this is creative energy. Like, when literally, like the word creative juices, like when the juices are flowing in all places in your life, there is just more creative juice and expansion because it's a state of being. So creating a pleasure practice, like, I love simple, by the way. So when I said, like, start with one hand on your heart and one hand over your vulva, or men listening here, you can put one hand over your cock, or you can be on your belly, like anywhere you want, but essentially really connecting with your body, starting there with 3 breaths, and then taking a few more, and just really like giving your body love. Like, the way that I always say, if it's hard for you to imagine what to do and you get really in your head, you can use your imagination and imagine, like, what would you love for a lover to do? How would you love for your lover to pay attention to you? How slow would you want them to go? Or how ravishing would you love them to be? And if it helps you to think of an external person or energy first, you can do that as a bit of a bridge. And then once you can tap into the energy of that, then you can let go of that person, because they're really just an energy that's being represented in this moment that you're feeling even without them here, right? And then you really turn that mirror back on yourself and be like, this is my erotic energy. And sometimes it can be like so sweet and gentle and innocent, and other times it can be hot and ravenous.
Hot and raunchy.
Yes, exactly.
I love that.
Music is great. I'm a big music person, so music can really shift the mood.
Yeah. Yeah. Me as well. I remember the first time I practiced, like, properly, a sort of a guided pleasure practice. And I thought, isn't that weird that we kind of grow up, probably because somewhere in our minds we think that it's quite shameful, or that it should be hidden away and it's not something that we should let anyone else see, that I feel, and having talked about it with so many people now, that many of us have grown up kind of wham bam to get there as quickly as possible. And actually, it is in slowing it completely down and not even trying to get to a destination or even orgasm. Like, I know a lot of women talk about wanting to learn how to orgasm later in life, but it almost feels like, why? Just enjoy your own company for as long as you have. And then the orgasm part feels like it's inevitable. Like, it's just like, that's the side with the main course. That's not the main course.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And there's so many different kinds of orgasms you can have. Like we're usually accustomed to this like super quick, we call it a peak orgasm, like energy builds, tension, contraction. All of a sudden you like explode and it feels amazing for a few moments. And then it's like, oh, your body's so sensitive. Like there's certain parts you can't even touch anymore because, all that energy is just like dissipated. And that can be, fun, pleasurable, juicy. But there's so many different kinds of orgasms you can feel. You can have full body orgasms. You can orgasm from like the elbow is an amazing place. Actually, it's so sensitive, or the backs of the knees. Like, yeah, there's so many different ways that we can feel pleasure. So again, it's just range, Do you want to just color with the blue crayon all the time, or would you
can orgasm from this crease in your
you
arm
can, yeah.
just by long terms, like just gentle stimulation.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we call them like the valleys of the body.
Yeah.
So they're like the yin tissue.
It's funny you bring this up because when I used to dance, I was telling you this last night, we would, sometimes have to sit to the side while different groups would go up, and we would pull out bobby pins from our buns and we would draw on each other's backs as sisters, really innocently. Yeah. But we would also do this along each other's skin. And it was always this mark, like the elbow mark, those creases that were always like, ooh, sent shivers down your spine.
Yeah.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah, so like the elbows, the wrists, backs of the knees, this like really beautiful yummy spot in the back of the ear, these like
down the neck.
Yeah, so anywhere where there's like a valley is like the yin tissue, and your yang tissue is like the muscles, like the fleshy parts.
And do both men and women have like this desire, like this more pleasurable spots? Are they the same, or are they slightly different on men and women?
I think that they're quite similar, actually. I think a body is a body.
Yeah. It's human.
Yeah.
Human anatomy.
We all feel things. It might just be a different level of sensitivity, but I don't even know, honestly, if that's a male-female thing. I think it's just like an individual thing more. I mean, in some of the tantric practices, there's different energy currents that like a man would run versus a woman, but I don't know. I honestly, I get it. Like and on some way, I'm kind of a rebel this way. Like I also just feel like if it's really true, which I do feel that we both have masculine and feminine, and hey, at some point, like I honestly even want to drop those words because it's like, they're just qualities. They're not even masculine or feminine. It's just one's more yin, one's more yang. Like, how do you have concepts for this,
Yeah.
But essentially, we are all everything. So if we approach life from that way of we are everything and nothing and all potential, then anything is possible.
And is it correct for me to assume on that theoretical level that if we really wanted to spiritually be enlightened, be completely fulfilled, whatever that concept is, that we would be like 100% masculine, 100% feminine, 100% yin, 100% yang, like all of us would end up becoming the same?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not spiritually enlightened, so I don't feel I'm far from, so I don't feel like I am qualified to answer your question. But maybe the one thing that comes up anyways when you share it is, if we go with the philosophy, which I think is really, is just that, that we are everything and we are one and we are just different expressions of the facet of the diamond, then yeah, we all have everything and we are just one. So there actually is no separation. So on that super like metaphysical level, I think then, yeah, we are everything. We are nothing. We are all the same, on that level. But the embodied tantric practices, also have a story, like a story, meaning like the story of Shiva and Shakti, or the masculine and feminine, which is that we were given this body for consciousness to experience life through. And it's by having differences that we can know, joy without sorrow, light without dark, that kind of thing. So we are different. We are uniquely different and we experience life differently, so that the consciousness of source itself can have these different facets to understand itself. So in that way, maybe we aren't all 100% all the things in this embodiment incarnation.
In this incarnation. For someone who's not spiritually enlightened, that was a beautiful answer.
Thanks. Just a bit of my guessing.
Let's bring this back. You have this amazing, you have a number of different amazing feminine workshop series, and one of them is called Untamed. And I love that name, Untamed. Tell us a little bit about the importance of this word, specifically when it comes to reclaiming your feminine essence.
So Untamed, first of all, came to me as a complete gift of grace. It really came as a download or a transmission. And I know that word gets kind of thrown around a lot these days, but it really was that. It was literally like in a moment I didn't expect. It was like, boom, like God, grace was just like, here, Alice, this is what you need to do. So I felt kind of choiceless in that. I didn't even come up with a name, nothing. It was just like, this is your mission, go do it, So I think this is why I keep on learning from the Untamed curriculum, because it's been my life curriculum, and also really born and shaped from the thousands of women that I've sat with at this time over 18 plus years in circles around the world. Untamed is like the feminine initiation that I honestly wish for every woman in the world to have. And most women, or I'd say almost all women, coming out of it, when we say like, hey, would you recommend it to a friend? They're like, every woman should do this. And it's because when we grow up in our modern day society, most of us have been tamed. Right? We kind of needed to in some way in order to coexist together. You come out as this like very radiant, wide-eyed baby that also has a lot of needs that also, needs to coexist, right? So I always say, like, growing up from the time that we were out of the womb, maybe even pre-womb, we come in, learning kind of the rules of life that are at least the way that they're seen by our parents and our caregivers. And then we've got the schools, we've got the community, we've got the religion, the culture, the language, the media, and so forth. And so as we grow up, we have this taming process that happens, which tells us, don't touch this, don't say this, don't feel that, that's too much, that's too little, like be more, be less. And then we, through this taming process, is like, oh my God, so many voices outside of myself. Rarely, maybe it's changing now in parenting, but rarely is a child kind of supported to really feel, well, what does that feel like for you? Okay, you have an emotion. Let's see how we can help you experience that, in a way that's also, yes, knowing that we are in a shared space. But like, how can we support you to be more you? That was rarely a question. That, as much as I love my family, I don't feel like that was my upbringing.
No, I mean, especially with the Asian upbringing as well. There's a very famous Chinese proverb: "The nail that sticks out must get hammered down."
Ouch.
And that is sort of the way of like societally to conform a little bit. And I do feel as women we are extra conformy.
Yeah, and it's not our fault. Right? Like as much as, I do teach self-leadership and radical self-responsibility in the Untamed process, it's very, very important that we are not like victims or blaming or shaming anybody else for our life. And at the same time, to recognize like it's not our fault that we grew up also learning to be the people pleaser or the peacekeeper, right? This is a lot of like the roles of the little girl sometimes, especially if your home environment didn't feel safe. Right? Okay, well, don't be too loud because you don't want to wake up mommy. She's not going to feel well. So, okay, I'm just going to learn to shush myself. So we, learn to kind of shrink ourselves quite often in order to keep the peace, or maybe more easily said, in order to get love, right? Feel safe, and have a sense of belonging where we are, because that also means love and safety. And we are animals at the end of the day, and we're really also wired for safety, right? So when we kind of adopt what I call the masks in Untamed, it's like these masks are strategies that we learned when we were young in order to get the love, safety, and belonging, which often worked at one point in time. And so then we kept it, and then we kind of adopt a few when like one is like, oh, well, that one doesn't work anymore. Like I can't just throw tantrums anymore in public spaces. Like that's not okay anymore. So let me now be the leader, right? Because then I can have a bit more control, and then I be more charismatic and people will love me. Okay, well, that works for a little while, and then that doesn't work. So then we adopt another one, etc. And then in that process, we often just end up losing our own inner gifts, radiance, intuition, aliveness,
energy,
because
we're too busy being other things for other people.
So this taming process is something that happens to all of us. The initiation, the reclamation, is to then untame, to let go of all those strategies that we once thought we needed in order to get our needs met, and start to actually first recognize how much energy it's costing us to keep everything together, or to be nice, or to not say what we actually think or feel, or to bottle up our emotions. Whereas at one point it felt like that was the safe thing to do. At some point after doing this for usually decades, we realize, wow, that is costing us. Energy, emotions, dissatisfaction in relationships, not actually being in love with our partner anymore because we've like shut ourselves off, being numbed out, having marriages where, you love each other, but the intimacy is gone. Like all of this is because we've shut down our life force.
Yeah.
So then, the untaming process is then like letting go of the masks, and then really doing these, feminine embodiment practices with pleasure, emotions, desire, feelings, dance, liberation, like really literally like coming alive again in your own juice and your own eros.
Tell me a little bit about one of your masks that you used to wear that used to shut down your own feminine essence.
Oh, I've got so many. One, the Ice Queen. It's so interesting because I never would have associated myself with her, because if anything, I was like, oh, people pleaser for sure. Like I know how to put that mask on well. But then I realized my Ice Queen was really strong. And I give you an example. I remember going to the bar, when I was in my early 20s. And like, yay, girls' night out. We're super, having a good time, get dressed, go out. And I'd hang out with my friends and be like, oh, did you see him over there? Or like, oh, that cute guy. Or like, my friends were getting chatted up with guys. And I was like the Ice Queen. I was like the untouchable, like I am too good for anybody at this bar. If a man came and said hi, I was such a bitch. Like I'm so embarrassed, and I'm so apologetic about it now too, because it wasn't me. It was like the part of me that was like actually feeling so awkward that I didn't know how to just be me when there was somebody of the opposite sex coming up to say hi. I was so wrapped up in my story about like, what if he wants something from me that I don't want to give him? And I just didn't know how to say no. So instead of staying warm, open, friendly me, but also stating clearly boundaries, I just like pretended like I didn't care, or I like shamed him for it. Like, ugh, all these men who are just hitting you at the bar. Like, it's so much more fun to go to a gay bar, where it's like nobody hits on you.
I so resonate. There's definitely 20-something-year-old Erica that was exactly the same. And there was also another mask, I think, where I was like sometimes a little like super friendly on the other side, like overly friendly, like immediately friend zone. So it's another way of creating safety when men would come and hit on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So, and meanwhile inside I was like, oh, like why doesn't anybody like me? Or like, why aren't I getting the guy? You know, and it's like, well, hello, like I just set myself up for the opposite of that.
Right.
You know, and pretended, you know, faked it somehow. So that's just like one example of the many ways that often when I work with women, they're like, oh, but I want a man who can lead, where I can just relax back and I know that he's got it. It's like, okay, I get it. Like, I hear you. I want that too, you know? So tell me more about how that's showing up or not showing up. And we dig in not so far. And it's like, she doesn't know how to let go. And so, yeah, a man shows up and he leads and she's like, oh, but I don't like that restaurant. I mean, you can also say if you don't like a restaurant, I'm not saying that, but it's just like any decision he makes, it's just like, it's not the right one. Or
I totally am also a culprit of this. Yes. You know, want him to lead, want him to take care of everything, and then be like, oh, but why did you book that place? Or what's this hotel? Or, oh, you know, versus like, but it's so hard.
Well, you know, this is kind of that dance.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if it was us that talked about it or me and another friend. Oh, it was me and another friend. But it was like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Do you want things to go your way all the time? Or do you want to sometimes lean back and not have to take care of all the things all the time?
Have you ever given any of your clients that homework? Like, as I'm talking to you now, I'm like, I should give myself this really ambitious goal of, for an entire month, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to invite my partner to lead and I will not say anything. I will just be like cheerleader and go for it, whatever it is. Yeah, but I'm wondering.
I love this idea. I would say in order to not like totally freak out your nervous system, maybe like start with 3 days.
Of course, I have to do it for 30 days.
I'm a little overachiever.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
weekend.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but like let him in on it though. I mean,
of course.
You know, I just feel like it's helpful sometimes,
Yeah.
or I don't know. I guess it actually kind of depends on every couple. I'm kind of like imagining you two, and you know what would be great.
But this is a really good question. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's a bit of a control freak and likes my things the way I like them, and I am a little OCD and all of these things. And I have gotten to a place in my relationship where my partner has been vocal to say, hey, it's just easier for you to do it because you know what you want, you know? And then I have literally killed off that part of him, this wonderful masculine part of him that was a lot more alive at the beginning of our relationship, that I want to invite back in. And I know that it was me. So I have to take full responsibility for it. Yeah. And we've had a few of these conversations already, but help me, Alice. How do I help me in my fall back into surrender and also invite my partner to take another leap of faith and a chance to, on me, that I'm capable of surrendering.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, I always say epic love starts with you. You know, it starts with ourselves. So whatever quality we are seeking from our partner, we really do need to learn how to give that to ourselves. You know, so how, before putting it on our partner, or in tandem at least, right, do the work of really receiving. So it can be something as simple as receiving when somebody gives you a compliment instead of rushing back to be like, oh yeah, you're also so beautiful. It's like, no, just say thank you and really receive it, you know, and even that alone is so uncomfortable for a lot of women. Or if somebody opens the door for you, you know, and like I have some moms who do this, you know, you've got like a baby in a hand and like bags of groceries and somebody like just opens the door for you and you're like, oh, I got it. It's like, no, just walk through the door like a queen, you know, and really it's in these micro moments again. Yeah. So that's what I would suggest doing for self. And then in relationship, it's really it's the Untamed method. So the first part is unmask, like taking ownership and realizing, whoa, babe, like I really noticed that I've been doing this. And I'm committed to shifting it inside myself. and just taking ownership for it, you know, apologizing for the times where you just like castrated him, you know, like really just share honestly. That's the first place. And then the second part of the Untamed method is to awaken that part of us that has been dormant. So for you in this situation, it sounds like, yeah, that part of surrender. And it's nervous system training, actually, is what I've realized. Because we can get it from the brain, like, okay, I understand that I should surrender. But your nervous system hasn't repatterned itself to. Because for many women, they share with me, it's like they're waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Right? So we're just like, I can't surrender because if I let go, like things aren't going to happen, or that's going to fall apart, or my kid's not going to get picked up from school, or the groceries aren't going to get done, you know, so we're like constantly managing. And what sometimes really needs to happen is for you to fall apart.
Right.
So then it's like, it's the nervous system training actually of creating enough safety in ourselves that I will allow myself, my masculine will let my own feminine surrender and fall apart. And I've got her.
Yeah, speak into this because it is really about whether I trust myself enough to whether I trust my own masculine enough to maybe create space for my feminine to really let go.
Yeah, it's, you know, so many, I mean, these are great questions. And it's like often when I get a question about like, oh, how can I shift this in my relationship? We will for sure look at that. But the first question is always, what's your relationship with yourself? And where are you not creating the space for that in yourself? And then we put the expectation on somebody else that they need to do that for us. When actually it's like, we're saying like, here, take the reins, but we're like madly holding on to them. And they're like, you really want me to? Like, I can't get these things out of your hands. Like, and then they get exhausted trying, or they're just like, forget it, you know, like to keep your reins.
Yeah. You do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're like, oh, I'm so exhausted. Nobody ever helps us, you know, it helps me. And it's like, well, is that true?
It's interesting because this entire conversation I've been hearing in my own head, it's like femininity or being in your feminine leadership is how much you honor yourself. And what I mean by that is even coming back to the beginning of this conversation where we were talking about, am I honoring myself even at work where I keep my mornings open? Am I creating that structure and spaciousness for myself to come first? It is these tiny little micro things, like moving my meetings from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. is a tiny little shift, but it is huge. It's a huge statement in how I feel about treat myself, honor myself. And I keep having that reminder of, oh, it's about how much do I honor myself in this? And I believe there is some sort of linkage there. And if I did honor myself and treated myself that way, then I could surrender more because I would feel, I don't know, worthy of being honored by others as well.
Pleasure, and taking it back to pleasure and like really in the bedroom. Most women will come to me and say like, I can't let go. You know, I'm just in my head the whole time. Or like, they're like, honestly, I'm kind of checked out. I'm like thinking about my to-do list. Or how long has he been pleasuring me? And like, oh my God, it's been like a few minutes. Like, we better switch. You know, like, we can't have all this attention on me, or it'll be selfish.
So
or it's
common.
time, you know?
I hear about this.
Oh, so common. I mean, that was me at one point. Like, and I for anybody listening, like I speak to this, like I know it because I do. It's like, you know, I've gone through so much of this, and really like on the other side is so much more freedom and liberation and joy and pleasure. And I really know what it's like to be not feeling that. And the more that and this was part of, you know, the awakening part of Untamed again, is like the more that I awakened my ability to receive, including in the bedroom, including those moments where I've been like, has it been too long? You know, and just been like, no, it's not been too long. you know, and also start to retrain my nervous system, my brain, my perspective of the world by being honest with my partner sometimes, like, hey, am I taking too long? Like sometimes it's literally just speaking our inner dialogue, you know, and he's like, well, if you're loving it, I'm loving it. It's like, oh, okay, great, you know, to like just do those check-ins sometimes. And I just have to share, like, when I ask men, like, what is their greatest turn on in bed with a woman, they're always like, when she's in pleasure. It's their greatest turn on. When she's in pleasure, I am in pleasure. You know? So, ladies, just take your time.
Yeah. Relish in it.
Yeah. So then it's like, how much can we allow ourselves to receive in life, in relationship, in wealth, in time, you know, and that again is a state of being, just like pleasure. So when those two are there, you know, then our capacity to receive is much bigger, and then our capacity to circulate, not hold. Yeah, like I don't use this word hold a lot because hold feels like this to me, or like, oh, I got so many things to hold. It's like our capacity to circulate, you know, to allow things to flow. Yeah, life flows.
And Alice, tie all of these elements together for me. Pleasure, our women in pleasure, women in leadership or feminine leadership, living in flow, living, you know, to our optimum, like being our most authentic self. Like there's a connection point there. There's a thread that goes through all of them. Can you tie it all up in a pretty boy
so
for
feminine,
me?
So pleasure.
Feminine leadership, pleasure, living our most authentic lives and being our most authentic selves.
Yeah. So how I see this is that when we are the most authentic, alive, real, self-confident version of who we are, when we're not pretending or managing, when we go back to that state of being when your soul came into this world as that little baby before it was tamed and just had your sparkle, your magic, your whatever, you know, like as you were a child, when we can start to tap back into that imprint of who you are, and we let go of all of the energy that goes around trying to not be who you are, so much energy frees up. It is unbelievable.
Oh, that's music to my ears. Perimenopausal. Everyone around me is talking about how drained we all are, but actually it might not be hormonal. It might be that we're holding on to a few too many things.
Yeah, and at some point during menopause, I'm not a menopause expert, but just from women that I've worked with and the little bit I've studied, seen, is like we also get to a point where we're just like done with the bullshit. Like I'm done pretending that I'm okay with this when I'm not. And this is good. Like this is a necessary part of being a human being. It's like a developmental stage, you know, where we're just like, no, I'm not going to put up with that bullshit anymore. I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to pretend to say something that I like that I actually don't. And then, you know, so then we kind of have this like bottled up energy, right, of us trying to manage all these things that like hormonally now we're like, fuck that. Like, I just can't anymore. There's too much energy. It costs me too much. And then, but the challenge, you know, if we don't have the tools is that then they get really leaky. Right? And sometimes we need to just have a good old outburst and not have to be perfect at it. And many times it's like, all right, I feel this energy of anger rising. Okay. So instead of just letting that like dump out somewhere, which also isn't a good mastery of your energy, you know, it's like, oh, wow, there's anger coming up. So what's really here? What really wants to be said? What have I not been saying that actually needs a space now? And when we learn how to alchemize our feelings, our emotions, our pleasure, our desire, you know, then it's so much energy gets freed up. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about this work, because I know how much of my own energy has gotten freed up since since I've done my own Untamed process, like, I don't know, 20, 30 times now in groups over the last 8 years. But I see it with women, and it's like in 5 days, on the other side, it's like, whoa, I am so full of my own energy. Mm-hmm. And then from that place, after you buzz with it for a while, it's like, then it naturally overflows into your relationship, not because you think you should, or a good wife would do this, not from that place, but really because of your own natural overflow. Mm. So going back to pleasure, leadership, flow, right? I think when we are in our own natural radiance and juice, there is so much more, magic that happens. Miracles that happen because we are actually looking up rather than being like, oh my God, my whole world, it's just like
looking down. Yeah.
We look up.
Looking up at magic and miracles.
Yes.
Your mantra for 2026.
Yes, magic and miracles.
I love this.
That's it.
Alice, this is probably a good time then to let everyone know that in May this year, in 2026, we'll be hopefully, what we are just seeding right now, bringing Alice's Untamed 5-day workshop to Dubai.
Yeah.
So for those of you interested, just ping us on Instagram, go to enlighteneddxb.com and you can sign up and register there. We'll have everything by the time this episode airs. So we are so excited to have you back. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us again. It's been the most pleasurable hour. I
loved it. Thank you so much. Can I add one little thing?
Absolutely.
Just in regards to us bringing Untamed to Dubai, which I'm so stoked about. I just want to use this as a real case study for a moment with the 3 points that you asked me about.
Yeah.
Because like Erica and I have, kind of had this thought for a bit, but it wasn't like, should we not? It was literally like we did the women's circle because it's so pleasurable too, because it actually nourishes both of us individually. And we know that it will also, nourish other women. We did it from a place of pleasure, not because we think we should or it's the right thing to do. It was like joyful. So from that place we offer. And then we get the feedback of like, okay, wow, this is really supportive. And then that, amplifies my juice, my joy, yours. And then it was the most simple decision for us, in a course of, I felt like minutes to be like, we're doing this, right? Yeah, we're doing this. Okay, 5 days. Okay, what if 2 weekends? Great, let's do it. It was like the most simple thing, not complicated, because we came from this place of pleasure. Mm-hmm. And we also said we're only doing it if it feels easeful and joyful. And I mean, obviously, like Erica and I aren't women who shy away from hard work or the challenging things. Again, it's not about that. It's listening to where is your pleasure? Where is your life force? Where is life flowing? Where is there your full body yes? And then not second guessing that and just going for it. And that's where magic and miracles happen. Leadership, flow, pleasure
intersect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you, darling.
Oh, thank you.
We'll see you in a few months back in Dubai. We hope to hear from all the Enlightened DXB listeners and audience out there and hopefully meet you in the flesh soon.
Hey there. If you like this episode and you're getting some beautiful transmissions or are feeling inspired to support this podcast in any way, the best way to do that is to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube, or wherever it is that you're plugging into the Enlightened DXB podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at EnlightenedDXB. If you want to reach out to any of the guests we have on the show, you can check out their profiles and their work at www.enlighteneddxb.com. And for those of you in Dubai looking for community, retreats, or additional resources, you can also sign up to our emailing list there. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, I wish you more joy, more ease, and a little sprinkle of grace.